guys, welcome to the first ever Hacking Modding Monday news segment. These will be happening every Monday, and I'm sorry this one got put out a little bit late, but it's still Monday somewhere. Anyway, I was really busy today and yesterday, but I'll make sure that starting next week, these get put out a little bit earlier in the day. So with these segments, what I will be doing every Monday is covering with you some general information and news about what's going down in the hacking, modding, emulation, and piratey scenes over the previous 6 or 7 days. I'll cover any significant, let's say, updates to any commonly or popularly used software or homebrews that are out there, if there's any new releases of software or homebrews, any important breakthroughs in any of those scenes that I think is important enough, and anything else that I think you, the viewer, will either find interesting or benefit from. That, of course, falls in line with what this channel is all about. Everything is going to be more geared to the average end user, so anything that comes out that is really more dev related or whatnot, I'll probably either skip over that or just cover it very quickly. Now, while I'll be focusing a bit more on current and past generation consoles and handhelds, I will still be covering some PC, Android stuff, even with the Raspberry Pi, as needed or as applicable. And as we go along, these segments will evolve and improve. Eventually, they'll get their own unique intro and outro, among other things. So let's go ahead and kick off our first ever segment. And we'll start off with PS3 related news. First of all, obviously, was the update that happened during the week to 485. I released a video when this came out, explaining, what you can expect and what you should and shouldn't do, for hen users, for those who have a fully jailbroken system. And then just a few hours after that, I released yet another video because there were already workarounds to get you back online to 485. I showed those of you who had custom firmware installed in a jailbroken system how to do it, and for those who were using hen with just a simple insertion of a text file for hen users, and for those on custom firmware, they could use send enabler. That took them up to 485 if they wanted to. And shortly after that, we saw an update to hybrid firmware. It went to 4.85.1 literally within a matter of hours. Also, Escort Do, one of the members of the PS3 exploit team, posted that they had made some little tweaks to the PS3 hen version exploit 2.3.1. So that seems to be working fine with 484 hybrid firmware. But of course, the official stance is to wait for the official PS3 hen 4.85 tools and payloads to be released. And they recommend that you do stay on 484 hybrid firmware, but still people have been using 485 hybrid with the 484 hen, and everything seems to be fine, and they're able to get back online. So on here, they also have links to keep you updated on various things, such as the flash dumper and writer, which I believe the flash dumper has been updated to 485, but not the writer itself. For those of you who have a jailbreakable PS3, that's on 485 firmware. So keep an eye out on that. And of course, I'll report back with any major developments. And for those of you who have a fully jailbroken system, if you're looking for an updated custom firmware 485, as of right now, only Overflow has his versions of custom firmware 485 up. There's various ones from standard Kex to Cobra Kex to dual boot, no BD versions, and others. Of course, there's no Dex here yet. Now, if you're waiting for Ferrix or Habib or Rebug to release their 485 versions, you're just going to have to be patient. Of course, there's no time frame as to when those get released, but let's hope that it is sooner than later. And moving on to the PS Vita, it too got an update in firmware to 3.72. Developer The Flow, though, was quick to update the Hencore exploit binaries to work with 372, and so now that firmware is fully exploitable. I don't know, when it comes to PS3 and these Vita updates, I don't know if Sony is ever going to learn their lesson or why they even bother trying. If you are curious, though, about the Hencore exploit and the PS3 Vita. I'll leave a link in the description to the PSX Plays thread. And the other news on the Vita is that a Downgradeer came out. This is a way for you to downgrade your 3.71 or 3.72 PS Vita or PS TV to 365 firmware. Now I'll put a link in the description here, which will bring you to psxhacks.com. And of course, anytime you mess with this kind of stuff, you need to do it at your own risk. There's a tutorial here. There is a video here. There's just a bunch of stuff. Everything you pretty much need to download and get and watch is all right here on the thread. So if you're interested in that, make sure you take a look at it. And let's just keep rolling on with Sony stuff here. On the PS4, I recently released a video explaining to you why we now know for sure that there is a fully functional and working 6.0 firmware kexploit that we know of, and that it is possible that that same kexploit still works for current firmware. That's why it hasn't been released. I go into details about all of that stuff in the video. I'll put a link down in the description. Now, next up are a couple of menus that were released for Black Ops 3 Zombies, of course, PS4 edition. The first one is a Small Zombies PS4 trainer by CMT Frosty. The developer also stated that they're probably going to be releasing one for Infinite Warfare and maybe even for Call of Duty World War II. You can come down here and scroll a bit in the comments till you get to this video here, which shows you how to inject it and use it. It's in Spanish, but it's fairly easy to follow. The other is the BO3 Zombie PS4 RTM tool by Mr. Niato. This one requires an API bin file to be injected using Netcat. For both of these menus, I'll go ahead and put the links, of course, down in the description, and there's videos here as well. So yeah, if you're interested in that and Black Ops 3 Zombie on the PS4 is your thing and you're on 505, then you may want to check them out. So hopping off the Sony train and getting on to the Nintendo platform, let's start with the 3DS, 2DS handhelds. When Nintendo pushed its most recent firmware update out, Luma custom firmware made an update. It's now on 10.0.1. The thing is, one of the most popular homebrews that's used, like Boot NTR, no longer function properly. Now, it has many uses, among them running cheats on games and even helping you to stream whatever you're doing on your handheld to your PC, but it no longer worked. Well, now on Static's channel, he has recently posted a tutorial that shows you the workaround so you can get Boot NTR working again with the latest Luma custom firmware update. I'll put a link in the description. It's a really good detailed tutorial. As usual, his are pretty great, and I can't recommend his channel enough. In terms of the Switch, nothing really major within the last week or two, although it's been a crazy summer for those of you who have modded Switches. A lot going down, but a little bit quiet as of late. Hopefully in next week's episode, we'll have a little bit more to talk about. All right, so now we move over to Libretro and the latest update to Retroarch 1.7.8, which was released recently. And then there was a small little revision, so it's actually 178 version 2. Now this is on Linux and on Windows as of right now. This version is. I think Android and iOS are getting the 178 update. It's right around the corner. I checked as of right now on the Google Play Store, and it's still for Android showing as 177. If your platform or medium that you use Retroarch on doesn't have 178 yet, as usual, I'm sure the update will come out later on. Usually for Linux and Windows, it comes out first, and then for Android and iOS, and then the other platforms get the updates later on. Although some of the features that they've added, I don't know if they'll work on all the platforms, because some of these are pretty interesting. But while I don't have the time to go over absolutely everything here, you know, they've done the usual bug fixes and improvements. I'm going to cover a couple of the new features that do stand out. Alright, so the first and most obvious one is the AI service. And this is absolutely bananas. Now, what it does is it uses something apparently that I think they call optical character recognition and text-to-speech services. What it does basically is if you are playing a game, let's say in Japanese, it uses a technology that scans the characters on the screen and then it translates them. More importantly, it does this two different ways. It can actually translate the characters to speech, or it can translate them to an image, meaning it'll decode the characters to English and then show them to you. Let me show you real quick here. The link I'm going to put to this page has this video right here that shows the demonstration. So let's take a look at this real quick.
I will ask you for your name. B button is set and Y button is used to cancel. Please start when you are done.
See, so basically it translated what was in the box. So if you're playing an NES game, SNES, Sega Genesis, or whatever, it can translate it. Now, the other way it does this is by actually using text on the screen. So in this case here, see, it'll translate it and it just shows you a square pops up with the stuff translated for you. See, there you go. So yeah, this is just crazy. I can't wait to try it out on my PC. There is quite a bit that you have to do to get it up and running and going, but I think it's definitely worth it, and I may actually do a tutorial on it. The next interesting feature is the Retroarch Disk project. So what this does is that it adds real CD-ROM functionality to 178 for the Linux and Windows versions. Basically, if you have the actual real game disk, you can now play it based, of course, on what emulator it is you're using. So right now, the disks that you can play are Sega CD disks, PlayStation 1 games, Sega Saturn CDs, TurboGrafx 16 CDs, and 4DO, which I'm guessing the 4DO emulator is actually for 3DO. So yeah, if you have those real game discs, you can put them in your system and play them directly, which is pretty cool if you want to experience the games that way right off of the disc. Okay, so a couple other features I want to mention here real quick. The Multitouch light gun controls, which will be available on the Android and iOS versions of Retroarch 178 when I'm guessing it comes out. It's still showing here as a work in progress, but there is a demo video here that you can check out. It's going to work on these emulators right here. And basically, just as it sounds, you get to use your fingers as a light gun on these emulators on certain games that require the light gun. The other thing is the thumbnails. There's now a couple of easier ways to get them. When you do the playlist thumbnails updater, it will scan that particular playlist and only download the thumbnails of the games that are in that particular playlist instead of downloading just a bunch of other ones that you don't need. Now you can still, there's a way to download all of them for that particular emulator, but if you just want to get only the ones you need, now this will do it automatically for you. There's also an on-demand thumbnail downloading, which will auto scrape thumbnails for a game when you hover over the game inside of the playlist. And then, as I mentioned before, some other improvements that they've done throughout. And that's pretty much it for today, guys. You know, I appreciate you watching. And if this was helpful or insightful, or you benefited from it in any way, or you just want to show your love or appreciation to the channel, the best way to always do that is, of course, hitting the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. So take care, guys. It's a crazy world out there. Be careful. Much love to you all, and we'll see you on the next one.